So Warner Brothers Discovery is like a recent merger, gigantic, reverse merger basically. I really want to eat this bagel that's been sitting on my desk. Is that okay? Chat, are you okay with that, chat? All right, 2 billion shares outstanding, $8 stock. You do the math. What is that? 2 times 8. You guys know? 2.5. 2.5 times 8. Well, 8 and 8 is 16. Half of 8 is 4, and that makes 20. Quick math. Quick maths. Man's still hot. Man's not hot. Does anybody get that reference? I've been in like 30 or 40 rap songs, dude. I can't play them now because I'll get like copyright strikes. 6ix9ine has been DMing me. I don't know what that's all about. He's a real Julio. Or Julio. Dylon, and Dylon. I don't think the music business is the business for me. I tried that. It sucks. Okay, distribution, advertising, content. Could it be any less descriptive? And other. So distribution is probably what, TV? Advertising is what it sounds like. Content is like probably film or other media. Well, 10 billion in revenue, not growing. They actually shrunk. That's classic media for you, right? These guys are just getting owned by social media. What would you rather watch? Media about literally you and your life, or about people you don't give a fuck about? Social media is just like genius idea. It's like top 3 ideas of humanities from all time. You got the wheel, you got fire, and you got social media. Prey on people's narcissism. They prey on my downfall too. I love black culture. I don't know why. I just do. I know all the sayings. I know all the words. I got the best words. I was teaching my colleagues yesterday about a black culture phrase called "God don't love ugly." Like, there's some that are like esoteric. Come correct. And there's some like a lot of people are saying nowadays, like unk. Everybody knows unk. I wouldn't say rap is nursery rhyme. Some rap is rather good. A lot of rap is kind of not that intelligent, but some of it's rather good, and it would be no different from Shakespeare today. Standing on business is another like new one. People didn't say that 5 or 10 years ago. People would say stuff like, I'm about my business, or stuff like that. No, I've been like this before jail. In fact, if anything, jail turned me off to a lot of black culture. I've compared Shakespeare and rap many times. In fact, there's a vocabulary analysis of rappers. Snoop Dogg has the lowest vocabulary, and the Wu-Tang Clan actually had the highest vocabulary. I mentioned that to RZA when we met to discuss the album. Like, quantitatively, the Wu-Tang was one of the most creative albums. There's always great artists in any time period, but you have to look for them. And I don't have the time to look for them. There are people that spend their whole lives like looking through archives, listening to every record they can. Man, I don't got time for that. I don't know that human nature differs that much, that Shakespeare understood life better than we did. He was a brilliant writer, maybe the greatest of all time. So it's not easy to compare the average rapper to Shakespeare. It's a ridiculous comparison. Nevertheless, Jay-Z, for example, especially his most recent work, is fairly good. Even Lil Wayne, I'd put up there. And then there's lesser known rappers, I mean, Talib Kweli or others that write masterfully. And these guys are not fools. But then you get the 50 Cents of the world that are entertaining, but they're not. And he's a master of entertainment, as you can tell from his film success and television success. But he's not, Shakespeare. It would be insulting to even put them in the same sentence. Eminem, I would say. Eminem could be compared to Shakespeare quite easily. All right. So Warner Brothers Discovery is this like gigantically debt-loaded company because they did that merger. So they actually, I mean, it's kind of nuts. This is a good example of like talking about enterprise value real quick. So Chad, I want you to pay attention in case you haven't heard this for the zillionth time. I've given this lecture 100,000 times, but I'm going to do it one more time. I hope Shkreli Pill or somebody like that understands it or shows it. All right, so you got the stock price. We all understand stock price, right? Like, that's just something you can keep on your screen. And in this case, it's like $8. And in fact, using Godel, if you're so inclined, let's say you're the CEO of Warner Brothers or something. Oh my God, I got so many things open. And you're like, all you care about is Warner Brothers stock. You can like, it's my favorite feature, Godel. It's such a small, lame feature, but I just love it. Like I could just make a gigantic like Warner Brothers Discovery stock price. Man, my Chroma is dying right now. It's like choking. But it's not the site's fault. It's like just been, I really need to restart my computer. But I have all these windows open. What do I do? Okay, so let's, sorry, I should start that over. I got distracted by some colleagues. All right, so you have this stock price, and it changes every second, and we kind of know why and where and when that happens, right? So that's Warner Brothers Discovery. Why it's not changing every second is another story, but it should be changing every second. Could be my computer, could be my software. Okay, it changed. So it's 798. It'll be 799 in a second from now, or 796 or whatever. So stock price is simple. That's really, really simple. Shares is a little less simple, but you can look up the shares outstanding. And really good investors know how many shares outstanding there are for all the companies in their portfolio. Challenge yourself to think, do you know how many shares outstanding there are of your favorite stock? It's important. You should know. Because that's how many shares the business is divided into. And for this company, it's this massive number. I'm going to use this probably here. It's this big number, 2.4 billion. Which makes sense because, like, if one share is only $8, you're buying a share of a business, like, that's not, a lot of money, $8. But when you see how many shares there are, well, that is a lot. So if I just own one share, just a zero turns into a one, or maybe a better way to do it is like here. Like this is how many shares there are, and this is how many I own. Just one out of 2.45 billion. I don't own that much of Warner Brothers. But let's say your dad was John Warner or whatever, and he created Warner Brothers a long, long time ago, and after all of the inheritances and splits and so forth, you owned 1 million shares. What does that mean? You have $8 million, right? Because each share is $8 and you have 1 million, and you could sell them for around $8. Maybe it'll be $7.95, maybe it'll be $8.05, maybe it goes up a lot, it goes to 10, but you own 2,450th of Warner Brothers, not quite 1%. Let's say John Warner, or whatever his name is, I'm just making that name up, was very generous, and you had no brothers and sisters, and you were the sole heir, and you had 24 million shares. So what is that, chat? Like 150 million, maybe 200 million? Yeah, maybe $200 million. And you own 1% of Warner Brothers. Well, what if you owned 99% of the shares? What if you owned like, I don't know, 2.4 billion, and there was only 50 million shares publicly traded, but your shares, you own like 99% of the company. Well, I would just multiply that times 8, and that would be what's called the market cap. So that's just the all the shares outstanding times the current share price. And we did that earlier. That calculation came out to be 19.6 billion. So that's what this company is worth. When we say what's the market cap, that's kind of what the company is worth. And this number is called the shares outstanding. And this number is called the stock price. And if you understand all this, like, you're actually got a good ways of like stock market 101. If you really understand this, you're sort of past stock market 101. Now stock market 102. It's going to be a little harder, and this is a really perfect company to teach the stock market 102. And stock market 102 revolves around this concept called enterprise value. So market cap is how much it would cost, right, to buy all of the shares, roughly 20 billion. And that's important because if somebody says, well, Warner Brothers makes 4 billion a year, well, that would only take me 5 years to buy, for Warner Brothers to make all of its money back for that 20 billion, if that makes sense. Like, it would be such a good deal if Warner Brothers made 4 or 5 billion a year. But if you told me Warner Brothers only makes 50 million a year, well, 50 million is a lot of money to anybody, but that would not be worth 20 billion. $50 million a year income company is maybe worth like 1 billion. So I would avoid Warner Brothers stock if that was the case. And of course, we can look at the financial statements and decide, well, what is enterprise value? Well, It's part of an equation that's really important involving cash and debt. Warner Brothers has cash and debt. Why? Well, any business has cash and debt. Debt's not necessarily a bad thing, by the way. You might borrow money to buy another company, which is what happened here. But what if you owned all those shares again? Let's go back to John Warner, and you inherited all of Warner Brothers. So you inherited every single share. And the company has cash in its bank account because it's a company, right? It has to operate. And how much cash does it have? Well, you can look it up. I looked it up in the 10Q, and it's $2.9 billion. It's a lot of money, right? And you say, hey, I own all the shares or most of the shares of Warner Brothers. I want you to give me all that money. The CFO would have no choice but to say, okay, where should I send the money? Because it's your money. You own all of the shares outstanding. And if you went on the stock market and you had the money, maybe you're Warren Buffett, and you started clicking buy on your Robinhood, and you spent all of your money or some of your money or whatever buying every share of Warner Brothers, you actually also own the cash, right? You own all of the assets of the company. You own the movies. You own the TV channels. You own the movies that haven't been made yet. You own the video games. You own everything. And they have a lot of stuff. You own Bugs Bunny, which I think is a Warner Brothers asset. All of those things become yours. And the company's still making money and so forth. But the company also has debt. And if the company has debt, you also owe that money. Now, it does not personal recourse to you, but the business, the debt of the company is gigantic. It's $42 billion. In fact, they have more debt than the company's worth. It's pretty wild. $42 billion of debt and $3 billion of cash. So if you were to buy this company out and you tried to wire out this $3 billion, the problem is your lenders would say, wait a second, you got to pay me first. You owe $42 billion. And the business is only worth $20 billion. So the enterprise value is a way of reconciling all of this. So what we do is we do enterprise value is equal, I'll make this a little thinner if possible. Enterprise value is the market cap, which you get from over here, the 20 billion, minus the cash plus the debt. And that's the enterprise value. What's important is to answer the question of why. And there's a lot of ways to answer this question. But again, if you think about the stock as this box, when you buy a stock, you're buying a piece of the box. What's in the box? All of the company's assets, which I'll say are green, like cash, property and plant, intellectual property. But you're also buying a share of the debt, of the accounts payable, things like that. And the stuff in the box determines, in some part, what the company is worth. So if the stuff in the box is negative 39 billion of cash, you have to take that into account. That when you pay 20 billion for the box, there's negative 40 billion in the box too. So the enterprise value we calculated is 59 billion. It's $59 billion. So if the company makes $5 billion a year, it's a lot less attractive than we thought. Why? Well, we have to pay this debt off, and it's going to take us 9 years to pay that off. And then it'll start going to the cash, bank accounts, which are yours. but you still have to now get this debt lower. So the enterprise value is often what I look at instead of the market cap. Often they're pretty similar. In this case, they're wildly different because Warner Brothers has so much debt. Sorry for the basic example, but sometimes I want to make sure you understand Wall Street 2.0. I'm sorry, Wall Street 102 or Stock Market 102. 101 is pretty easy. Now, as you can see, Warner Brothers makes a ton of money. In fact, before interest and taxes, they're making like $6-7 billion a year. So they're going to pay off that debt pretty quickly. And by the time the debt's like half paid off, it basically is like they not affecting the company. Right now, there's so much debt, they really have to kind of get rid of it. But the way you get rid of it is with your profits. And $1 billion every quarter means it'll take about 40 quarters before the debt's gone. 40 quarters is 10 years. Like other companies, they have a cash flow statement. Cash flow looks a little weird, actually. But the other weird thing is that this isn't a growth company. It's an old media company that isn't that exciting. You know, they're not doing exciting things. No media company really is doing exciting things. Media is being torn apart by the internet. Now, some managers are really good and they find a way to grow, even if they're in a crappy industry. And I would argue that right now the media industry is a pretty crappy industry. But once they get out of all this debt that they had from combining Discovery and Warner Brothers, or basically AT&T owned Time Warner, and they merged Time Warner with Discovery. Okay, so studios. Trying to understand the business a little bit better. Okay, so studios is so they released Dune, Hogwarts, Aquaman. And then there's Networks. Networks is TNT, like all the normal Time Warner stuff. And then they have HBO Max. Okay. I think I get this. So content is films. ETC is that in distribution? It's HBO Max. It's just a little confusing to me how they segment this. This merger is actually closed a while back, right? So $10K will be useful. They closed in 2022. It was one of the biggest mergers ever. Okay, Warner Brothers Motion Picture Group. They own DC Comics. Interesting. CNN, Discovery Channel, Game of Thrones. Batman, of course. Looney Tunes. All right, so studios is films. Makes sense. Networks is TV. And then they have DTC. But they also have distribution, which I didn't really understand. But all right, networks is television. Simple, right? Content makes sense. It's interesting, social media, like people making their own content, like in Aiden Ross or whoever, you know, and then celebrities kind of owning their own ability to make content on Instagram or on wherever. That's kind of killing these companies. And it's hard to have a 360 deal with somebody like The Rock or something like that. Like he's got his own assets and companies. All right, so here again, they have distribution. So annoying. Advertising and content. But earlier they said it's studios, networks, DTC. Studios seems to me to be content. Networks to me seems to be distribution. I don't know. This thing's like kind of retarded. Maybe advertising is networks. I don't know. It's so dumb to me. Okay, they have EBITDA by segment too. So networks is their most profitable segment. At least that tells us something. Yeah, I get that like all three of them are in different buckets. I sort of get that. But it's just like content is like, I don't know. Somebody made a untoward joke in chat about my mother. I don't appreciate it. My mom is a nice lady. Leave her alone. Your mother, Trebek. Okay, so within studios, I see. It's all content. So all of the studio's revenue is recognized in content, which makes sense. Within networks, all of it's recognized in distribution. Well, not all of it, but like half distribution, half 54% distribution. 39% advertising, and the rest content. So what's the rest? 87%. That makes sense, right? Because like they do CNN, but they don't charge for the content, they charge for the advertising. They get a little bit of content maybe from something or other, but CNN Plus or something, I don't know. But most of it's distribution to like Comcast pays them, and then they get some advertising, something like that. And then DTC is all distribution. But net, the company is not growing. And I'm happy about this. Fuck media, man. It's making it personal for a second, but quarterly it's not growing. After the merger, obviously, they went through a gigantic growth. Let's assume that they have the same operating results forever, which kind of is like what media is, right? Like Looney Tunes and some of these films and stuff like that. They're like very, like Warner Brothers has been around forever, right? A lot of us grew up with Looney Tunes. I know I did. Ah, taxes. Forgot about taxes. Very important. Kamala wants a lot of taxes. All right, I get $11. It's at 8. I don't know. To me, like, companies like this will always have like a way to exist. But like, I also think the nature of content is changing dramatically. Like, CNN has actually grown quite a bit. So I'm not sure that's where it's going to come from. Eventually, CNN is going to kind of go away. I mean, cash flows have to go forever. Companies live in perpetuity. They're not like people. Will movies go away? I kind of think so, right? Yeah, I think a lot of this stuff it could be like AI. So there's some threat that there's going to be some of this content going to social media. I mean, more of it. Right, people might make their own movies, stuff like that. Maybe it gets easier to make content. In the past, it was harder. Celebrities make their own content, so forth. Look at Mr. Beast, for example. So yeah, I wouldn't touch Warner Brothers. It's not compelling enough. Like the managers, Zaslav or whatever his name is, he's pretty good. I just don't want. I mean, this isn't my space, and to me, I also have an emotional hatred for media, so I'm like not the best person to like really look at these businesses.